Great. Awesome. Well, I think we're ready to kick things off here. Thank you all for coming. During today's information session, we're going to provide an overview of the Environmental Tech Lab, give you more information about our 2 open challenges to help guide your applications. We also have a couple of DEP agency representatives on our call who will give you more context about the challenges. And you'll also get a chance to hear from company alumni who went through the program last year. We'll end with a Q&A session. My name is Anusha Sridhar. I'm the Director of Innovation Programs at the Partnership for New York City, and I help to run the Environmental Tech Lab. I'm joined today by Stacy Matlin. She leads all the public sector innovation programs here at the Partnership, and she's the SVP of Innovation. She's previously also led our sister program, the Transit Tech Lab, with all the transit authorities here in New York City. So we're really excited to kick this program off. We launched the ETL last year with New York City Department of Environmental Protection, and we're ready to get into round 2 to test technologies that can help mitigate the worst effects of climate change on the nation's largest municipal water and wastewater utility. In addition to water, the DEP also works to reduce noise, air, and hazardous materials pollution. Just a quick couple of notes before we get started here. We really encourage you to use the chat functionality. Stacy will be helping to monitor that. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat. We'll get through all the questions, or we'll try to get through all the questions at the end of our presentation. And if we don't have a direct answer for you, or we can't get to your question, we'll be sure to get back to you within a week with an answer. We also will follow up this session with an email afterwards with a recording, and we'll be sure to update our website FAQ page shortly after this session. Awesome. So just to introduce the Environmental Tech Lab, in 2022, the New York City DEP approached the Partnership for New York City about creating a lab focused on water issues, which would be modeled after our sister program, the Transit Tech Lab, which was created in partnership with the MTA. The Partnership for New York City, we are the Partnership Fund for New York City. We are an impact investment arm of the nonprofit Partnership for New York City, and we seek to advance the economic development and innovation here in New York City. And the Environmental Tech Lab replicates the Transit Tech Lab model to provide a pathway for early to growth stage companies to collaborate more efficiently with the DEP to address critical priorities. It's an annual program, so each year we'll meet with the DEP leadership and staff to understand their top challenges, and then we'll open up applications to recruit companies from around the world to apply. The program itself is designed to facilitate an iterative testing approach in a 2-phased testing process. The first, which is an 8-week proof of concept, during which the idea is to conduct a minimally viable test, and then a year-long pilot to dive in deeper and understand if the technology is viable and scalable in the context of New York City's DEP system. So for this year, the challenges that we launched with are around resilience and data management and governance. So if you're an early to growth stage company with a mature product that can address one of these 2 high-level questions, we encourage you to apply. Of course, we do have additional eligibility requirements that we'll be going over in just a couple of slides. So in terms of resilience, the question here is, how can the DEP enhance climate resiliency goals, including carbon reduction actions, noise, air, water compliance initiatives, flooding mitigations, and water conservation strategies? In terms of data management and governance, the question here is, how can DEP integrate and analyze disparate data sets to drive business strategy, deliver capital construction projects, optimize critical data models, and better protect the people and infrastructure? Now, we have these high-level challenge questions posed, but if you look on our website, and you can see that there's a couple of example use cases within each challenge that has been informed by our conversations with the DEP. So some of the use cases are listed here. Once again, this is not an all-encompassing list of what we're looking to solve, but this is just a subset of them. So for example, we were looking for reporting tools to manage compliance requirements. We're looking at video surveillance monitoring tools. We're looking at different sensors that can plug into catch basins in order to determine the sediment level below the water surface. So there's a couple of different use cases here. We also have some use cases that may not be representative within the water wastewater space. So for example, we're looking at EV utilization tools, and we're looking at, digital twin modeling, et cetera. In terms of eligibility requirements, what we've seen through our experience with the Transit Tech Lab is that growth stage startups, the companies that have found their product market fit, are possibly generating revenue or have customers in either in different marketing segments, are the most successful. The actual eligibility criteria is listed on our website and also listed over here. So as mentioned, being a growth stage company with an innovative solution, making sure that you have a product in beta version and successfully deployed in at least one customer. One thing to note is that our program is designed for private companies. So if you're a public company or a subsidiary of a public company, you're not eligible to apply. And in addition, you have to be registered to do business in the state of New York. Now, we know some of you might be international and may not have this registration yet. That's completely fine. We do have steps on our website for when the time comes. And if you're chosen to participate in our program, it's a pretty quick process to get registered to do business here in the state of New York. And also from a cybersecurity standpoint, we do ask that all DEP data is stored within the United States. If you're unable to store DEP data within the United States, you may not be eligible to apply for this year. In addition, we do have companies are subject to the New York City Cyber Command Review done by OTI prior to beginning the proof of concepts. We do have our terms and conditions on our website that detail this and more, so please be sure to read through those because most of your questions can probably be answered from our terms and conditions. From an evaluation criteria perspective, we will be inviting public and private sector evaluators to evaluate all the applications that come in through the Environmental Tech Lab. And these are the 4 criteria, equally weighed, that you will be evaluated upon. So first, impact. So do you have a viable product with positive impact on performance or customer experience? The product itself, which can it present metrics to show market fit and ideally paying customers? The team, so who is your team? How are you guys uniquely positioned and are qualified to participate in the program and ensuring that you have no conflicts of interest? And value. So is there some new innovation here that can provide value to the DEP and can help improve efficiency in some way, shape, or form? So now what do you get out of our program? So broadly speaking, we've heard that it's particularly challenging for startups with limited resources to win work with public agencies due to long sales cycles, red tape, et cetera. The Environmental Tech Lab and the Transit Tech Lab and all of our public sector innovation programs were specifically designed and created to help startups navigate this process and make it easier to access the right people within the public sector. We do have a simple application, shouldn't take more than 30 to 45 minutes. And through that process, you gain access, exposure, and feedback from relevant agency stakeholders and private sector individuals. In addition, once you're accepted to our 8-week program, you'll have a customized plan to evaluate the technical integration, including a kickoff meeting to establish expectations and scope. You will be assigned a DEP project manager that we'll have weekly check-ins with. And we also invite companies to New York City for a midpoint check-in around week 4 or 5, during which we'll schedule a tour of a DEP facility and be able to shadow day-to-day tasks when appropriate, and also with potential to present to higher level senior stakeholders. If successful, the agency can select your company to move forward with a year-long pilot to further demonstrate your technology and to help agencies determine if a longer-term relationship is valuable. At this point, I'd like to call out that the ETL is an unpaid program, which means that there aren't any funding opportunities for the 8-week proof of concept. However, if you are selected for a pilot, there is a funding opportunity if you are based in New York City, and we're looking at other funding opportunities for non-New York City-based companies. Now, for some key dates, so applications are open now, and applications will close or are due on August 1st. We do encourage you to start your applications early and not wait until the morning of. To get access to the application on F-Success, you can go onto our website and onto any challenge page and hit apply now, and that'll redirect you to our F-Success application. If you have any questions or are having some difficulty, please feel free to email us. We do have a helpful video in our how to apply section on our website that might also be helpful to view. After August 1st, as I mentioned earlier, applications will be reviewed by the public and private sector experts that will use the evaluation criteria outlined before in order to evaluate companies. And then a subset of applicants will be invited to our partnership offices in New York City for pitch presentations and a demo day. So the pitch presentations will occur September 10th and 11th. You'll get 10 to 15 minutes to present with a 10 to 15 minute Q&A. And the goal of the presentation is to pitch your company and your product to a panel of DEP evaluators. We do encourage you to block these dates now, just in case you are invited to come to New York City, and we will notify you mid-September if you are, we'll notify you about 2 weeks in advance if you are selected to pitch. Demo day will be September 12th. It's a subset of companies who pitch from September 10th and 11th. And demo day is more of like a show and tell, an expo style event. We actually open up demo day to a wider audience of agency stakeholders. And the idea is kind of like a conference where people can come up to you and talk to you about your solution and how it can apply to them. Soon after demo day, we'll select the companies that make it to the 8-week proof of concept. And you'll notice that there is a bit of time baked in between the demo day and proof of concept start date at the end of October. And that's because we'll be going through insurance, cybersecurity requirements, and scoping conversations in the month in between. So the proof of concepts will last until the end of December, and then we'll have final presentations in mid-January next year. And once again, final presentations are an opportunity to present what you've done during the 8 weeks to a panel of senior level leadership at the DEP. If you're selected for the pilot, we will notify you right after the final presentations, and pilots are set to begin in April 2025. So now that I've introduced the program to you and how it works, I'm so happy to be joined by some of our incredible partners over at the DEP who will introduce themselves momentarily. We'll hear from them, and then we'll hear from a past program participant before heading into Q&A. So without further ado, I'll pass it off to Bill Morris.
Unmute myself. Hi, I'm Bill Morris. I'm the program director for DEP. Work closely with Anu and Stacy over last year's program and this. It's been quite exciting and looking forward to another good year this year.
Awesome. Clarabelle, if you'd like to introduce yourself. She might not be on. Megan Burke.
Hi there, I'm Megan Burke. I'm a project manager in the Bureau of Water and Sewer Operations. I was also the project manager for the ETL last year. Anu, would you like me to go into some details about the Bureau and our functions and the projects, or?
We'll get into that in just a second. We'll just quickly introduce everyone, and then the following slides we'll dive in a little bit deeper. So if
Okay, thank you.
On.
Hi, Anu, it's Clarabelle. I'm sorry I wasn't able to unmute myself fast enough. But I'm Clarabelle Abreu, and I am a program analyst working under Bill Morris, here to support in any way you guys need.
Thanks, Clarabelle. And then over to Jonathan Hoffman.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Jonathan Hoffman. I'm the Director of Regulatory Compliance, Strategy and Innovation for Bureau of Wastewater Treatment. And so I work for one of the big operating bureaus for DEP.
Yeah. Thanks, Jonathan. And then Dennis.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dennis Stanford. I'm the Deputy Director of Engineering Services within our Bureau of Engineering, Design, and Construction. We handle the large-scale capital work for the agency. I believe Jamie Canali is out today.
Understood. Thank you. And we also have Michael Shum on the line. I believe, Michael, if you'd like to introduce yourself. Oh no, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you, Mike. No worries. Michael Shum is the CIO at the Department of Environmental Protection. He is a strong agency partner of ours who helps understand our cybersecurity protocols and works closely with the OTI department. Awesome. So now that we have all of our DEP partners introduced, we'll dive a little bit deeper into the different bureaus at the DEP, and I'll pass it off to Bill Morris to introduce water supply.
I'll speak on behalf of water supply. The Bureau of Water Supply, as it says, manages a 2,000 square mile watershed with 19 reservoirs and 3 controlled lakes. It says on the slide 9.6 million New Yorkers. So that includes all the citizens and visitors to New York City itself, plus about 1 million upstate consumers of our water. And we have an elaborate program for operating the water supply system and protecting the water supply system. We're one of we may be the largest unfiltered supply in the country. Everything west of the Hudson River up into the Catskills is unfiltered. It's treated with chlorine and then with UV light to neutralize cryptosporidium and giardia. But that's it in terms of treatment, disinfection treatment. We do have a filtered system that supplies a smaller portion of our water, the Croton system on the east side of the Hudson, that is filtered in a fairly new filtration plant located in the Bronx. That's it.
Thank you, Bill. And then over to Megan for water and sewer operations.
Hi again. So the Bureau of Water and Sewer Operations has about 1,200 employees. So we're about 20% of the DEP. We're another one of the large operating bureaus. We are mainly responsible for transporting water and sewer throughout New York City. So we get the water up from the reservoirs from the Bureau of Water Supply, and we transport that water throughout New York City to all our customers. And our fire hydrants are also on our drinking water system. And then we also are taking sanitary waste from buildings, transporting it through pipes over to the Bureau of Wastewater Treatment. And another part of the sewer system is that we have the catch basins throughout the city, and other assets that can take on water and that would connect to a sewer. And then that waste either goes into a combined pipe, which would also go to the wastewater treatment bureau, or it will go out of a storm outfall directly to the waterways. So those are our main functions, kind of moving water and sewer through pipes and through various assets throughout the city.
Thank you, Megan. And would you like to say a couple words about some of the use cases you're looking at?
Oh, sure. So the one is for RFID technologies. We have various assets, the hydrants, the catch basins, green infrastructure assets, such as the robust rain garden program that DEP has. And when we go out and inspect those, it's very important for us to know that our inspector is at the asset that they think they're at, because a lot of our assets are co-located. They might be very close to each other. So it's important that we're collecting data about, you know, the condition or if cleaning is needed or if repairs are needed and exactly which asset they're referring to. So that type of issue could be solved maybe with RFID. Also, it could be something like a special new way to apply an RFID device to an asset because these assets are out in the rain and, you know, we really need to get them to stick on there. Or it could be some type of technology that maybe you take a photo and you know exactly which asset it is, or, you know, any kind of technologies along those lines where we could be really sure about exactly which asset someone is at rather than, you know, what we're using now, which is just kind of standing in front of it with an app, with a map, and they can see their location, but it's just not, you know, always fine-tuned enough if assets are very close to each other. And the other one about measuring sediment in the catch basin, we presently use a poker rod with a known length and, you know, kind of take the two measurements, the bottom of the basin, which is just however far down, they can get the poker rod down to the bottom. And then, you know, they measure the amount of the rod that's sticking out above the grate and kind of do that subtraction. And then they also take a second measurement of the top of the sediment and settleable debris to get their second measurement. And then they just plug that into an app, which will like spit out the subtraction between those two values. But yeah, so if people have other solutions of how our catch basin inspectors might be able to come up with that measurement more efficiently, then we look forward to hearing about that.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
All right, and over to Jonathan Hoffman for wastewater treatment. And Jonathan, also feel free to mention some of the use cases you guys are looking at.
Okay, so for Bureau of Wastewater Treatment, we operate 14 wastewater treatment plants. We call them wastewater resource recovery facilities across the 5 boroughs. They don't necessarily follow the lines on the map for the boroughs, as you can see by the graphic on the right. It's about 1.3 billion gallons of wastewater each day, and we have 96 pump stations and 7,500 miles of sewers. Although, like Megan said, the BWSO largely handles the sewer work up to a certain point, and then we take it from the treatment plant perspective in the pump stations. We're doing a lot now. We're trying to be more sophisticated in our understanding of how the sewers work. So that's maybe elevation of the water. Are things is the water discharging through a combined sewer? I should have actually mentioned this. The New York City is about 60% combined sewer, which means that when it rains, the rainwater mixes with the sanitary flows, and a lot goes to the treatment plants. But once we surpass the treatment, the ability for the treatment plants to pump that water and put it through treatment, it's allowed to actually discharge to the waterways, whether or not it's the East River or Jamaica Bay, or, you know, basically all the waterways around the city. And that's primarily to protect the treatment plants. We're doing, like I said, we're trying to do a lot in terms of getting more sophistication on the technology side, and trying to equate operations with the collection system to see if we can collect more water at the treatment plants or make some adjustments or feed design. That's definitely one area that we're working on. We, like BWSO, there's a lot of data collected or that could be collected from the collection system, and then also from the treatment plants. And it's all in different, we have everything in different formats. It's collected by different people differently. And so it's some sort of standardization. I know that that's something that we've always struggled with. those are important to us. I saw on their scheduling, schedule of work, the time, some of the questions, the time it takes, to actually do work. We have a lot of emergencies, and we don't have a real great method of predicting when things happen. In the city wastewater plants, we're kind of related. We're looking more into asset management. I know this is a lot of different things, but we have a lot of infrastructure, so sorry. But yeah, so we're looking at just ways to streamline all of our different information with different people in different locations across the city. It's not as straightforward as it would seem.
Thanks, Jonathan. Yes, definitely a lot that we're trying to approach with this lab. Okay, and then over to capital construction. I think this is you, Dennis.
Yeah, so the Bureau of Engineering, Design and Construction manages DEP's largest capital projects, from conceptual design to construction completion. About $24 billion at any given time is currently in our portfolio. Our clients are the other bureaus here on this call, and we work to deliver the most state-of-the-art projects essentially on their behalf. The problem we're trying to solve all relate to evolving technical solutions and products, and then incorporating them into our program in a timely manner. A $1 billion infrastructure project doesn't happen overnight. It takes years of planning, design, and implementation, and keeping up with industry innovations can be pretty challenging when you think of that scale. So what we're looking for are firms that are proposing for the design and construction industry and how we can do things better to improve project delivery on behalf of our own internal clients.
Awesome. And Dennis, do you have any use cases you'd like to discuss?
Mostly focusing on decarbonization, and then documentation of construction. We want to streamline our construction processes, digitalize. A lot of the similar situations to what Jonathan was referring to is digitalization practices and automation to take kind of the human element out of our projects and oversight. Personally, I'm very interested in the decarbonization side and looking at new technologies and equipment that we can use to improve the infrastructure that we're investing in alignment with Plan NYC and the city's sustainability goals.
Thank you, Dennis. And then for air, noise, and hazardous waste, Bill, I'll let you figure out who wants to talk about that.
So in addition to all the other things we do, we're also responsible for enforcing both the air, noise, and hazardous materials codes in the city. That involves responding to complaints related to air pollution, smoke, etc., odors, as well as complaints about noise, which, as you can imagine, in New York City is a bit of an issue. So we handle thousands of complaints related to that and perform, again, thousands of inspections. We also regulate asbestos in the city, both enforcing for illegal removal or work associated with asbestos, and also handle the filing of permits for asbestos removal and inspections associated with that. And we also are a licensure agency for certified asbestos inspectors in the city of New York. And another part of our, not that bureau, but our Police and Security Bureau also handles response to hazardous materials complaints, and also handles our right to know filings, where companies have to file when they store hazardous materials. They file information with us. I think that covers all of it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Bill, and thank you, DEP team. We do have a couple of questions coming in on the Q&A side for you guys, so we'll get back to you in just a minute. But we also have a former program participant, NAC, on the line. Brian Carey's the CEO of NAC, and NAC has actually participated in both the Transit Tech Lab and the Environmental Tech Lab. So I'll pass it over to NAC to share a few words. Brian, I believe you're muted if you are talking. No, still muted. Oh, I have to unmute you. Okay. Okay.
Good.
Over to you, Brian. Yep.
All right, thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brian. I'm the founder of NAC. As Anu mentioned, we were recent alums of the ETL program and actually go back with the partnership a couple years to the Transit Tech Lab, where we first learned about the model that they are working on through this program, and she did mention the Transit Tech at the beginning. So we're obviously huge proponents of this particular model from the standpoint of, if you're a company that has a product and you're looking to get it quickly deployed in pilots, this is absolutely the place for you. So we've discussed on other panels the difference between the ETL program and say an incubator or an accelerator. This is not a program where you're going to receive startup guidance. This is really a program where you will be matched with DEP. You'll have a project manager, and then your goal is really to prove in a very short period of time, but prove the value that can be delivered by your solution, and then that can lead to longer term engagements. So through our first program, the Transit Tech Lab, we won a very sizable contract with the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey, which was one of their participants in that program. And then the second time around, obviously, once we saw the value in the program, we applied to the Environmental Tech Lab. We had less of a, I would say, product market fit for the Environmental Tech Lab, but we were able to bring our solution to the DEP team and work with them to better understand what their needs were, what their use cases were, and modified accordingly. And so I was actually on the phone with our project manager this morning from the DEP team, and we're deploying more devices literally as we speak. So huge proponents. I would also say, in terms of the technology, there are obviously the participants today have mentioned a lot of different use cases. I would encourage you to apply regardless of whether you fit very cleanly into one of their one of the challenges. If you think you have something that could be vaguely beneficial, definitely apply, and then work with Anu and her team to see if that might be relevant. So happy to answer any questions, and definitely put your applications in.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian, for sharing those words. I think now we'll move over to the Q&A portion of the call. We did have a lot of questions come in from the sign-up form, so I'll go ahead and kind of review those questions along with the DEP team and Brian from NAC as well. And then Stacy has been moderating the chat, so we'll kind of wrap up with any questions from the chat as well. So let me just stop sharing my screen. Awesome. Okay, so a couple of questions came in. Let's start off with some of the BWSO questions. How wide and deep is the average catch basin? Over to you, Megan. And if Megan has dropped from the call, I'm happy to answer this question. Oh, no, there you are, Megan. Apologies. please feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi there. Yes. Yeah, so the average catch basin is, if you can picture the grate, underneath the grate, you have the basin box. So the basin box is 4 feet long by 3 feet wide. And then down into the depth to the bottom of the basin, the average is about 7.5 feet.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan. Another question for you. How many gallons is a average CSO event? And that's combined sewer overflow event on average?
I believe that might be a BWT question.
Awesome.
I have a deeper question. It's so that's another bureau, but they're not on this. Our CSO discharge over a year is like 1 billion gallons. It's a lot. It obviously depends on the rain event, where the rain is, which, sewers it goes to, and how intense the storms are and how long they are. So it's not really that simple to answer that, but it's a good amount.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. We did get a question for the fleet team at DEP. They're not on the call, but I'm going to be answering that question for them. The question is, how many EVs does New York City DEP currently operate? How many in the next 5 years? The answer there is 671 EVs, including plug-in hybrids and off-road electric vehicles, 400 to 500 more EVs in the next 5 years. And this depends on funding availability, charging station expansion, and new technologies and vehicle ability. I also saw someone in the chat ask a bit more about the EV use cases that we're looking at. And once again, to echo Brian's sentiment from before, we encourage you to apply whether or not you fall squarely into one of the categories I'm about to mention. But the DEP EV fleet operations team is looking for vehicle utilization optimization tools, ways to reduce emissions from tire particles, vehicle operator authentication tools, safety software tools to reduce preventable collisions, and mapping tools for large trucks. So it really, once again, covers a wide variety of use cases. On to the next question, and this is for the BEDC team, so for you, Dennis. Are you looking for construction tech software vendors, and is planning and scheduling a priority?
The short answer is yes. We're interested in any construction technology or software that can help us do our jobs better, give us better insight into the performance of the jobs. Our biggest factor, of course, is schedule and things that lead to delays, things that lead to conflicts, and getting better understanding of our jobs before risks become issues and issues become delays. Any sort of insight into that, I think, is helpful. So it's accurate schedules are a priority for us because it has a big impact on our budget and public perception. But I did want to tack on a little bit to the EV question, if that's okay.
Yeah, please go for it.
We have an executive order for clean construction, and we're not only looking at our fleet for electrification, we are looking at construction equipment. We are looking at hand tools to cranes to bulldozers. The electrification for us isn't really going to end at commercial vehicles for active fleet. We're looking at everything really from that perspective. So, and there's been a lot of limitations, especially in the construction industry so far. So,
Thank you for that, Dennis.
thank you.
Okay, I'll be reviewing a couple of questions on the energy side. The energy team is not on our call today, but they did answer some of these questions offline. What are your top challenges you see when planning projects that have carbon savings? The answer is it's really identifying a procurement vehicle. So a project can be a good idea, but really understanding how it can be, how a new capital project can be started. And then, the projects typically specify performance standards for materials and equipment not specific to vendors or products. Can you share how you think about balancing project costs with money savings and with carbon savings? So the answer there from the energy team is that they're bound by local laws to reduce GHG emissions. So we have to take carbon emissions into account for all major projects. We also need to keep rates reasonable, so can't pursue every project before technology has matured and costs come down. So once again, the DEP team does work with DCAS, which is another agency here in New York City for funding for energy saving projects, which makes it easier to make the case for higher install costs. And then the DEP does not consider project costs in competition with embodied carbon savings. For certain materials, you know, there are set embodied carbon limits. For operational carbon, they look at the initial investment versus carbon savings over the lifespan of the product. And then another energy question, are you also looking for solutions that can help issue carbon credits? The answer here is tentatively yes. They've been approached by one group that wanted to make credits for infrastructure that we could claim in the future, but you know, there's tentatively yes, I think is the answer there. DEP does actively manage forest land, blue belts, and other green infrastructure. And you know, there could be some interest in applying credits from land management practices or other eligible activities. All right, so some other questions here around AI. So how do you utilize AI so far, and specifically with regards to data? Which security measurements do you have in place currently to secure inputs and outputs? The answer here is we're using AI for, DEP is using AI for various use cases, and all AI models must follow the NYC AI plan. For more information, there is a website that you can read a little bit more on. I believe Stacy's putting that in the chat right now. Yes. So if you click on that link, you can read a little bit more about that. And then do you run or plan to run your own isolated AI models? And the answer here is they're looking at both models. All right, so now we have some other questions that came in through the chat. Stacy, would you like to go over them?
Sure. So this one's for BWT. So we have a wastewater treatment technology that converts waste activated sludge from sewage treatment plants into biogas and chemical fertilizers with zero solids residuals left over. This saves money, recovers resources from waste, lowers GHGs, and optimizes the existing infrastructure. Is this technology applicable to the challenge?
For BWT, I you know, it's of interest to us, so I would say it's applicable.
Great. And then there's a question around if the pilot is successful based on mutually agreed upon metrics, will this be auto-converted into a regular contract? Will the procurement process be streamlined, or is this just a one-way to test out technologies? So I can answer that. So in general, we work within the existing procurement process. This is not, we have been working separately to outline a challenge-based procurement to have it seamlessly integrated, but those steps, that's still a little bit of a work in progress. And so we work very closely with the companies and the agencies to identify best pathways, and we are not in the business of wasting time and doing pilots for pilot's sake. And so if your technology is successful and demonstrates value, we're not gonna, you know, we'll make sure that there's pathways forward. If DEP needs to go out to a competitive RFP, they'll do that. If there's a pathway direct forward, we'll talk through that. It's very much a case by case basis. I don't know if anybody wants to elaborate there, but we can move on for now.
That's an accurate representation. You know, we try as best we can to find the most efficient procurement mechanism.
Great. So Michael Shum, I don't know if you're able to get your audio to work, but this is a question for you. Would you prefer the data was hosted locally or on your own servers?
I think Michael had to jump off, so I promised to try to take his
No, I'm
questions
here.
where I could. Oh, no, he's there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. We always prefer it in cloud as much as possible, but as Anu mentioned, we do have the requirement that all data has to be hosted in the United States.
Do you have a preference on if it's local or in your DEP servers?
If it's on-prem, then yes, it'll be on our servers, preferably.
Okay. And then a couple of questions just around eligibility, if there's only one employee, is it eligible? Does it have to renew? So the only eligibility criteria, it's on our website, but you cannot be a public company nor a subsidiary of a public company. If you look at the evaluation criteria, there's evaluation that shows, there's a section of the team, and a key component of that is that the company should have more than one customer or one or more customer. So if you don't have a customer yet, it might be a little too early for this because you're working with the largest municipal water wastewater utility, and oftentimes you need security procedures, you need insurance. There's just some basic business standards that is often we found have been difficult for really small companies. And so those are the things that we like to keep in mind, but we're happy to have a conversation offline. We would encourage everybody to apply, but just realistically, if you're too small and you don't have those basic cybersecurity protocols in place or insurance protocols in place, then we might recommend that you wait for future years to apply. How much funding is available for New York City-based companies? So I just want to reiterate that if you're selected, the only funding opportunity, there's no funding through DEP. So we keep this separate. It helps to streamline the process. And then the only funding opportunity right now that we've identified is for pilot winners. So if you're selected for a year-long pilot, you can apply for investment capital through the partnership fund. And that's up to $500,000 per company for investment capital. And we can be flexible on the type of investment capital, but there are no grants right now. So please do keep that in mind. And then how many tons of biosolids do you produce each year? I don't know if Jonathan, you have an answer here.
Yeah, it's a little more than 1,000 wet tons. 1,000 wet tons per day. So it's a lot.
Right. Is the DEP / BWT
350,000 tons in a year or something like that.
Great. And we can go back and confirm, and we'll post all of the answers online in about a week or two. Is DEP / BWT open to exchanging historical process data through an Excel file or an equivalent third party to perform potential assessment of the process performance in the term of optimizing the process and reducing efficiency? For example, sharing historical data for a pumping station or an anaerobic digester or any other energy related process.
I think in general, we probably are. Stacy, I would ask, is that would be something after we move past the first step, right? Or is it not part of the proposals, right? Or would that be something we'd have to see what the technology or the idea is first, right?
Yes, I don't imagine that this is not publicly available data, so this isn't something that would be open to the public. But if a company is selected for a proof of concept and there's a cyber review and there's insurance, then there's ways to translate information between DEP and a company.
Yep.
Another question for you, Jonathan. What is your cost per ton to dispose of your biosolids, including both transportation and tipping fees?
It moves around a bit, but it's roughly $155 a ton. That we'd have to check that.
Okay, great. We have a question about assets that might be for BEDC or BWSO. So the question is, how deep are your assets? Is there an interest to provide high-speed 3D underground mapping of your pipes with inch accuracy? Would you find any value in integrating that information with elevation profile of the ground? And what do you use to view and analyze your data in 3D? I think in general for these questions, if we don't have an answer here, we can't go by use case. If you broadly have a challenge, a solution that can solve one of those broad challenges, so around resilience or data, we would encourage you to apply. So in general, yes. I don't know if anyone else from DEP wants to add in around, that pipe
I would
mapping.
say underground utilities are always challenging. I'm sure Dennis agrees. So things that map underground utilities and can track them. I know BWSO has put a lot of effort into our facilities, but anything like that is probably useful and could be used well for us. Could be
Yeah,
done.
we use a host of BIM 3D modeling tools, and we are in early stages of discussing how we're linking that to our asset management systems, and from design through construction and then in actual operational use. How deep of our infrastructure? We go down like 800 feet, so we have a lot of infrastructure just below the surface and pretty far down into the bedrock, so and everywhere in between.
Great. And Dennis, this is an extension, another question around what scheduling software are you using for New York City's high stake capital projects? Is it a P6 or MSP?
Primavera P6, yeah.
P6. And then are you currently generating multiple schedule scenarios or what if scenarios to look for the most optimal path during the planning scheduling phase and during the execution phase when faced with delays and constraints? And what % of schedules are resource loaded?
Well, that's a challenge, right? So in design, we do look at multiple scenarios for our schedules, and then we work in when we get into construction, we typically just work towards the final completion milestone, leaving the means and methods to the contractors, and that's basically our approach. But we want to be better at understanding what risks there are in place and how they may have impacts on those projects as they get identified, so we can better understand what their risks then can become more tangibly to our projects.
Great, thank you. There's a couple of questions about in the Q&A around safe instruments. So for that question around investment, yes, it could be a safe instrument. We could be flexible, but we're a lot of steps ahead of ourselves because you have to be selected for a pilot and apply. But yes, we can be flexible, but we just want to make sure everybody's aware it's investment capital, not grant capital. And then in terms of, there's a question around for those who are scaling fast and already establishing government to budget time when resources are very limited. So that's the value of the program. We work very closely with you and the agency to help make sure that the pilots and the tests that are being conducted are valuable and you're demonstrating your product and you're not just doing a pilot for pilot's sake. So we would encourage you to apply, and we try to scale the amount of work. So, you put in an application that's 45 minutes, you come in for a pitch presentation, every step of the way you get more feedback, and it's an iterative process. So it's our purpose to make as most efficient use of your time because we know it is very valuable. There's a question around how much do you pay for underground mapping and surveying of pipelines? I don't know if anybody on this from DEP would have an answer there.
I'm sorry, can you restate that?
How much do you pay for underground mapping and surveying of pipelines?
I don't know the answer to that one, but if you leave that question, in the list, we'll take it back to.
It's probably the majority is probably project by project, so it's not. I don't think, Bill, we have like an overall program. I could be wrong, but it's probably something that we won't really be able to get. It would just be some estimate, some random estimate.
Yeah, all that work gets competitively bid.
Yeah.
Depending on the scope and duration, so differs.
And then one more question, not sure if there's an answer here. Like just the level of the problem to find water leaks from buried pipes.
Is Megan still on? That might be.
Yes, I'm on. The level of the problem, you said?
Yeah, like, is this a massive problem that you would be looking to solve?
I think it is something that occurs, of course. You know, we have water line leaks, we have some water main breaks sometimes, as people know. I think our numbers, we actually perform pretty well compared to other municipalities. And we have a leak detection team that, you know, is a field operations group that does leak detection as an activity. But yeah, we could, you know, take this question in and see if we have any other information about it.
Yeah, I mean, do you think we'd be interested in new technologies associated with leak detection? If there was something more efficient? But it couldn't hurt, right? If somebody has something that they think saves time and makes it a more efficient process to do leak detection.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's up to me or not to answer that right now, but you know.
But it can't hurt, you know, if there's something they think is really, you know, a new and interesting technology that really improves how that works, they should probably propose, you know, make the application.
Yeah, to echo what Bill said, yeah, you know, even if you kind of are at a high level falling into one of the 2 challenge categories, we would encourage you to apply. I wouldn't be too concerned with oh, are you looking for this specific solution? Because the applications will be evaluated. And you will know, you know, whether or not the DEP will be.
Right. The purpose of the use cases was to, you know, to try to give you some general ideas of things that are being thought of. It wasn't supposed to, it's not supposed to provide some limitation on the kinds of technology that we're potentially interested in. So it shouldn't be constrained, it's just examples.
Awesome. Stacy, was that all the questions? I think we got everything.
We are past time, so that was all the questions. That was past time. As always, if you have questions, you can reach out to us. We're happy to answer them. And this is a public process, so we will be posting these answers. We'll be posting this info session online afterwards. We'll be posting the answers to the question online. We want to make sure everybody has the same access to all the information and make sure that you apply by August 1st.
Awesome. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, DEP. Thank you, Brian from NAC. And
Thank you, everybody.
on the call.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good
Thank
one.
you.
Bye.